Okay, let's unpack this. What if the reality we experience is far more intricate and, well, surprising than we ever imagined? We have a truly mind-bending collection of insights today, pulled from a really in-depth conversation exploring, the hidden connections within our universe.
Sounds fascinating.
Trust me, you'll want to watch this until the very end. You are definitely in for some real surprises.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Our deep dive today journeys through these fascinating intersections of, well, science and spiritual development. We'll be looking at some pretty extraordinary claims, potential future shifts for humanity,
Right.
all hinting at a universe far more interconnected than we typically perceive.
That underlying connectivity seems key.
Exactly. Our mission today is to navigate these complex ideas and extract the most compelling information for you, keep it engaging, and crucially, avoid that feeling of information overload.
Good plan. It can get dense quickly.
Right. So let's begin with something that might sound like pure sci-fi, but it comes directly from our source. The early days of alleged government interaction with extraterrestrial beings. Our interviewee talks about a past diplomatic mission where they personally met these entities.
Yeah, and what's intriguing right from the start is just the scale being discussed. The interviewee mentioned that back in 1955, the CIA apparently knew of about 7 ET species.
7.
Okay, but now they claim that number has just exploded, many orders of magnitude higher.
Wow.
Which, if true, raises so many questions. What's driving it? What are the challenges?
And here's where things get really interesting. This diplomatic mission, it was focused on figuring out why these beings, the ones often called the Greys,
Yeah, the Grays.
why they were offering incredibly advanced tech in exchange for, well, seemingly trivial human stuff. Like, what could their real motivation be?
Well, if you think about the timing, the Cold War context is pretty compelling, isn't it?
Right, the space race, the arms race.
Exactly. That intense global rivalry meant any technological edge was, well, massively valuable. Plus, you probably had internal competition between U.S. agencies too, right?
Oh, definitely.
Everyone wanting a piece of that potentially game-changing tech. The lure of leapfrogging science likely overshadowed maybe a deeper look at the ET agenda initially.
And these weren't just casual swaps, actual agreements were made. But according to the source, it took something like 60, for these agencies to even start questioning the full implications.
60 years. It's a long time to operate under agreements without maybe fully grasping the long-term picture.
Isn't it?
It really raises questions about, balancing immediate gains versus long-term consequences. The initial excitement over the tech might have delayed that critical look at the Greys' objectives. The fact it took decades really highlights the complexity, maybe even some subtle manipulation involved.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Why might this info be bubbling up now? Our source points to changes in disclosure policies, the Pentagon, other groups seem more open maybe. What's driving that?
Well, the interviewee offers a few potential reasons. One interesting angle is this idea of planetary cycles.
Planetary cycles, like seasons but bigger.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Earth might go through these huge, long cycles, influenced by its galactic position, solar activity, even consciousness evolution itself. And, these aren't totally new ideas, echoes of big floods, ice ages. They pop up in old myths, tribal knowledge.
So how does the solar activity we're seeing now fit in? We hear a lot about solar flares and such.
Right, and what's fascinating is the suggested link between high solar activity and, well, two things. More information becoming available, and maybe an acceleration in consciousness evolution.
More sun, more info, faster evolution.
That's the idea proposed, that intense solar activity correlates with the densening of information, a speeding up of conscious growth. We're even hearing anecdotal stuff about animals acting smarter, Could be a natural cosmic nudge for growth.
And the source also mentioned the Earth's core, possible polar shifts within these cycles. That sounds pretty major.
Absolutely. Variable core behavior, potential polar shifts. These are huge geological events. Connecting those scientific possibilities with ancient stories of world-changing events, it gives you this broader cyclical view of Earth's history.
And beyond Earth cycles, there's this idea of pressure from ETs themselves, pushing for disclosure. Why would they want that?
Yeah, that's another layer. The interviewee stresses there are loads of agendas at play, individual, group, supranational, even exopolitical levels involving different species.
Complex.
Very. And according to the source, some species were apparently quite concerned about human actions, especially nukes, WWII, the Cold War, suggests our stuff has ripples beyond Earth.
And that concept of entanglement, our consciousness being tied to Earth, that kind of rules out just packing up and leaving, doesn't it?
Exactly. The interviewee suggests that even advanced programs realized our consciousness, individually and collectively, is deeply woven into Earth's. So just trying to escape off planet probably wouldn't fix the core issues. We're kind of stuck here together, in a way.
Okay, let's get personal for a moment. How did the interviewee even get into this world? It wasn't like an overnight thing, right? Started more conventionally.
Right. What's interesting is the apparent starting point. Researching control mechanisms in the Middle Ages, focusing on the church's influence.
Medieval history, how does that connect?
Well, it seems like it might have been a subtle way to gauge their analytical skills, maybe their ability to handle unusual information without immediately dropping the EP bomb,
Ah, okay. A test, maybe. So what does this all mean? How did medieval research lead to, well, meeting aliens? Must have been some big jumps.
The description is like a gradual reveal, following breadcrumbs, like finding these old Athenian texts that mentioned reptilian beings helping build temples.
Reptilians building temples in Athens, okay.
Now, you might dismiss that as myth, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it served to subtly stretch the interviewee's perspective on history, on non-human involvement.
And then the laser experiment, that sounds like a real turning point. Opening a field of light, seeing beings in an ocean of light.
Yeah, this is where it gets really fundamental about reality itself. The idea is we humans exist on the outside of the particle ocean of light. Our solid world is, in a sense, a kind of illusion, like a hologram.
A heart edge type of illusion was the phrase.
Something like that, yeah. Based on light and information. So the lasers disrupted that perception, allowing a glimpse into this underlying light ocean and the beings within it.
And these beings, slender, robed figures interested in the afterlife. What was that about?
A fascinating take. The idea is, in the quantum continuum, death isn't really an end. Consciousness continues. But the human mind, used to beginnings and ends, finds that transition traumatic.
Makes sense.
So according to the source, this species creates what we perceive as afterlife scenes. Meeting loved ones, familiar places, often reported in NDEs. They do this to lower universal entropy, basically, and ease the trauma of that consciousness shift, like a cosmic support system.
Wow. Okay, so from seeing them remotely, the interviewee then gets invited to actual face-to-face meetings with the Greys inside these metallic containers. Why the containers?
Right, those containers were apparently designed to compress frequencies, like a bridge. Because the Greys supposedly operate at a much higher frequency than us.
Higher frequency.
Yeah, and direct exposure can be overwhelming, even dangerous for humans. The interviewee mentioned feeling immediate fear, like a primal reaction to this intense, unfamiliar energy.
And it's interesting how the Roswell incident and the CIA's founding are so close in time. The source connects them directly.
Yeah, that connection strongly suggests realizing there might be ETs out there was a huge catalyst for setting up an agency specifically to handle this new, complex reality. Recovering tech, understanding it, that became top priority.
And the tech exchange itself, fiber optics, reportedly came from the Greys. Makes you wonder what else.
It really does. The source emphasizes they provided foundational tech we now rely on, which naturally leads to questions about how much influence they've had, the long-term effects. The diplomatic missions were partly about figuring out the Greys' why.
And these meetings weren't exactly comfortable, were they? Glass tablets for translation, a physically tough environment.
Highly controlled, yeah. The glass tablets were like translators for their complex symbolic language into, say, German. But even with that, the frequency difference was still a major issue. The interviewee described people, even high-ranking officials, having severe reactions, fainting, or in rare cases even dying, just from the intensity of the Greys' energy field.
Jeez. Despite all that intensity, there were some lighter moments, like the Greys messing up language sometimes.
Yeah, it's sort of comforting, isn't it? These linguistic slips, they show the challenges of interspecies communication, maybe even a bit of fallibility on their part. Not perfect.
And the whole implant thing that comes up constantly. The Greys' explanation was often surprisingly, well, benign, monitoring well-being, not control.
It's a different perspective than the usual fear narrative, definitely. The analogy used was like how we track animals to monitor health.
Ah, okay, like tagging a whale.
Exactly. The source suggests the Greys often use implants for similar reasons, especially with individuals connected to them, to ensure their safety, their well-being.
But they were critical of how humans use technology, worried we weren't using it to create a positive planet.
Yeah, coming from a civilization that apparently merged deeply with tech for their evolution, they had a specific view. They were reportedly disappointed that advanced tech given to us often got hoarded by small groups, not shared for everyone's benefit. They were apparently interested in rediscovering their own organic spirituality and maybe hoped we'd use tech to build a more harmonious world. Kind of resonates with Eisenhower's warning about the military-industrial complex, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so that brings us to a totally different kind of contact encounters with these interfrequential life forms, the blue beings, described as loving, beautiful, a big contrast to the grays.
Right, it highlights the potential diversity out there. Different life, different consciousness, different ways of experiencing reality. This idea of layered realities, that we can maybe tune into different frequencies like a radio. Yeah, potentially. Our consciousness, maybe under certain conditions, could perceive these other layers of existence.
And the German obsession back in the 40s trying to contact the designer of the universe. Is that related?
Well, the interviewee suggests that German scientists back then, who were pretty advanced in quantum thinking for the time, were exploring reality's interconnectedness. They sought contact with what they saw as the ultimate source. Their methods might be debatable, but their quest to understand deeper reality might have maybe inadvertently laid groundwork for this interfrequential stuff later.
And the experiment with coils compressing frequencies that led to contact with being 6, this blue light being, what was that like?
So compressing frequencies supposedly opened a door, a temporary bridge, to another reality realm. The encounter with being 6 was described as incredibly positive. Just this overwhelming passive love and a simple message, everything is good.
Everything is good, simple.
And the blue color apparently is significant, a communication frequency tied to compressing universal frequencies. You see blue-skinned gods in different cultures, right?
Yeah, you do.
So there might be a resonance there. The interviewee was skeptical at first, but eventually accepted this peaceful, benevolent contact.
Okay, quick pause here. I want to give you some good news. If you're enjoying this deep dive and maybe leave a comment, YouTube actually gets a better idea of what you like and recommends more videos like this. So please do consider subscribing and sharing this video if you're finding it as fascinating as we are.
Good point. Engagement really helps the algorithm connect people with content they'll appreciate.
So back to being 6. While the Greys worried about misused tech, being 6 saw our biggest problem as an imbalance between female and male energies. That's pretty profound.
It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from external tools towards our internal dynamics, how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
Being 6 apparently said we possess the ultimate tech. Our consciousness, our bodies.
We are the technology.
In a way, yeah. And from their view, this imbalance between what we call masculine and feminine energies is a fundamental block to our progress.
And the idea that the feminine initially had more love in this dualistic setup, leading the masculine to constantly try to prove itself, sometimes becoming toxic, that's a heavy concept.
It speaks to a deep dynamic in our reality, doesn't it? That drive to prove worth, if it's disconnected from just knowing your worth, can lead to imbalances, destructive patterns. Recognizing the neutral energy within everyone beyond gender roles is presented as key for harmony. Even sexuality is seen as this powerful energy source we often misunderstand or suppress.
Let's switch gears again. Galactic credits. Sounds like a totally different economic system.
Yeah, described as a system backed by tangible stuff, gold, minerals, technology, not like our fiat currency. Individuals supposedly earn credits by doing deeds that help the Greys' overall system.
Deeds for the Greys.
Apparently. And these credits can then be used to get tech or enhancements. The Greys also act as sort of brokers for other species wanting to contact or help their human relatives.
Like cosmic middlemen.
Kind of. The analogy used was the Acme company providing services, but always with their own benefit in mind. Humans can apparently even make contracts for tech, but there's an expectation of repayment or service later.
Okay, that reptilian story, the encounter at a party, being asked if he was a Cylon, that's unforgettable. Straight out of a movie.
Right. It reportedly highlights that some ETs can disguise themselves, live among us. These reptilians use holoforms.
Holoform.
Yeah, a mix of hormonal manipulation and psionic tricks to look human. They can change skin color, features, but height is apparently harder to fake.
Interesting.
And these beings sometimes take advantage of Earth's situation for their own gain cop. Galactic credits, information. The funny bit about the credit points just shows how unaware the interviewee was initially about this hidden economy. And apparently they can only hold the disguise for about 3 months here.
3 months. And they had a history here too, ancient civilizations.
According to the source, yeah. Alleged evidence suggests they've influenced human history, subtly guiding things for their own ends for a long time.
Which leads to maybe the biggest question. Where does all the negativity come from? racism, war. Why is humanity like this?
It's the core question, isn't it? The interviewee explains it partly through the dualistic, solar-based nature of our universe itself. It inherently creates contrasts, divisions, maybe as a way for the universe to explore itself and heal.
A cosmic mirror.
In a sense. Humanity has huge potential, but also this relatively rare problematic trait: intense competitiveness. That, plus alleged interference from other species over the last, say, 15,000 years, genetic tweaks, introducing systems that foster imperialism, it's all said to have held us back.
And things like Columbus's observations or even roid rage are given as examples of maybe external influences.
They're used as illustrations of how external factors, social, environmental, maybe even biological, can amplify negative tendencies. The term the installation comes up.
The installation.
Yeah, representing this kind of malevolent setup mostly in the mind, designed to hinder our evolution. The claim is these specific interfering beings were removed in 2019.
Removed?
That's the claim. But the internal programming, the conditioning, might still be there.
Right.
Like a monkey going back to its cage even when the door is open. It's internal now.
So, if just fighting evil doesn't work on higher levels, how do we break free from this installation in our minds? How do we develop our own psychic side?
Well, Being Six apparently taught that direct confrontation with negativity on higher planes is often, well, pointless. Like trying to fight a shadow.
So what do you do?
Redirect. The analogy was like gently turning a wild dog's aggression into playfulness. The focus shifts from fighting physically to more subtle, maybe technological engagements. And crucially, recognizing the universe as that mirror and consciously putting out positive energy that's seen as vital.
And the fear of death.
That's described as a key part of the installation's programming, which is ironic because we experience the void, a kind of mini-death, every night during deep sleep. Reality is seen as this quantum continuum, constantly refreshing. We are designing our reality moment by moment.
Okay, so consciousness levels. Humanity's at level 3. What's level 4? How do we get there?
Right, level 3 is self-awareness, soul development, where most of us are. Level 4, which Earth is supposedly cycling towards, involves deeply knowing our interconnectedness in the quantum universe.
Knowing it, not just thinking it.
Exactly. And that knowing unlocks potential for things we'd call miracles by location, interacting with portals consciously. Examples given include ascended masters or people in certain high-vibe places on Earth already showing these abilities.
So how do we level up?
The advice is, detach from the negative norm stream, the mainstream fear stuff, and actively connect with supportive beings, supportive energies. Be open to psychic stuff happening. Think of someone and they call. Don't just dismiss it. Explore it.
One thing that's really striking is how openly the interviewee talks about all this, given their background. They mentioned being an independent field operator. What does that mean exactly?
Basically, it means being freed from the usual agency rules and red tape. But the flip side is no official backup or support either.
So, going it alone?
Pretty much. The drive to share this seems intensely personal. Being Six apparently warned about a coming planetary shift and worried we weren't ready because of the installation. And because we're all connected through consciousness, you can't just escape Earth's problems alone. Spiritually awake people are supposedly vital for balancing the planet's energy field.
And they proposed a plan to their agency like 15 years ago based on universal connectivity.
Yeah, a plan focused on overcoming negative limits. It highlighted 3 key things to amplify our positive effect on reality: individual psychic potential, the power of unified groups, and emotional connection, especially love.
Groups are more powerful.
Significantly more, especially when emotionally connected. There was even a calculation showing how much amplified the effect could be, which leads to the practical advice. The all shift happily now practice.
Right, do that before sleep.
Yeah, focus intention on happiness, well-being, consciously contributing to a positive planetary shift.
We have covered so much ground, and honestly, it feels like just scratching the surface, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a massive topic.
I really hope we get to continue these conversations. Okay, this brings us to our final trio segment, but first, for everyone listening, where can they connect with your work and the All Shift Happily Now community?
Absolutely, thanks. Everyone is warmly invited to check out the community at allshifthappily.now.com.
Okay, now for our final trio. First 2 are a bit more personal. Last one is our signature question. First, what's your core formula, your mantra maybe, for birthing a timeline where all humanity shifts happily now?
It's simple, really. All shift happily now. I genuinely believe focusing on collective happiness is the most powerful unifying goal we can have.
All shift happily now, I like it. Second, if you could ask any ET, any alien being, just one question today, what would it be?
I think I'd ask about something cultural, something beyond the usual government or tech stuff, like their food, their art, their music. Maybe ask if they have pizza and what's their favorite song, something humanizing.
Pizza and favorite songs, nice. Okay, last one, the time capsule question. You can leave one thing behind for future leaders to help usher in this new Earth era. What object or message would it be?
I'd leave a mirror, just a simple mirror, but with a little smiley face or maybe a winking emoji sticker on it. And next to it, the question, are you at level 4 yet?
I love it. Encourage self-reflection, but keep it light.
Exactly. A reminder to check in with themselves with a bit of humor.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing all of this incredible, really extraordinary information with us today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely, and yes, I hope we can continue the conversation too.
Okay, everyone, there are now 2 videos up on your screen. Feel free to click on either one to continue your journey exploring these ideas. And please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you found it valuable. Thanks for diving deep with us.